Hey everyone, I'm Lucy Charles-Barclay, Ironman World Champion. Welcome back to our channel. In this video, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update. I've had a recent health diagnosis, which at first was a bit of a shock, but now kind of looking into it, it's not actually that surprising. And I think on the plus side, I should actually be able to improve my health, my lifestyle, and hopefully my performance by just some small changes. So in the whole scheme of things, it's actually quite positive, I think. Over the last couple of years, I've obviously had quite a few injuries with my hip stress fracture, my metatarsal break, and also the calf tear in my leg. And with all of those injuries, we never found like a real reason for why they happened. So it was always quite frustrating. So over the last couple of years, I'd looked at a few different things. I'd also had some issues with a lot of bloating, stomach pain, joint pain, and I felt like it wasn't normal, but I couldn't really figure out exactly why these things were happening. And back in 2021, I did a food intolerance test. I decided to do a blood test to look at food intolerances. This was purely because I often suffer with a lot of bloating, a painful stomach, GI issues in racing, and on that test it said that I was intolerant to quite a few foods, gluten being one of them, all of dairy products being another, and there were a few others on that list. So in 2021 I thought, you know what, I'm just going to cut all of those foods out of my diet and see if I feel any different. And I actually felt unbelievably better. Like, there were so many changes. I didn't get joint pain anymore, I wasn't as bloated, I felt like I had more energy, and actually my performances started to really improve that year. So we felt like, well, that must be something that I need to keep doing, and I always kept doing it. Leading into races, I would cut out those foods, and then after a race I'd be like, oh, okay, well I can celebrate now by eating a pizza or having a cake or having foods that I really craved, and then I would feel really rubbish again. So I felt like, okay, well there's a time and a place to cut out those foods, but then if I'm not racing, it doesn't really matter. So after dealing with most of those issues for a couple of years, this year it felt like the symptoms had got a lot worse. So I felt like constantly bloated all of this year. I felt quite tired. I'd had the joint pain come back and it just didn't feel quite right. I'd had a lot of stomach pains and I felt like I needed to investigate this a little bit more. So I decided to go and see the doctor and have some tests done to see whether something was going on. I had a blood test, I had an x-ray of my abdomen and several other tests, and went and met with the consultant this week, and it's come back that I've got celiac disease, which at first, like I said, was a bit of a shock, but then it sort of started to make sense because when I had made these changes before in my diet, I felt so much better. The difference being when you have celiac disease, you cannot eat any gluten, like even the smallest amount will have a really negative impact, and basically your immune system attacks the cells in your small intestine, so you're actually doing damage to your small intestine when you're eating gluten, and it doesn't matter if it's the smallest bit or absolutely loads. So when you're having a immune response, basically all of your inflammatory markers in the body go up, so there's more inflammation carried around in the blood, so that means that it's not just your stomach that's impacted, you'll have higher inflammation around the whole body, which of course would explain the bloating. But if you have other issues like joint pain, that generally comes from inflammation, so that would explain why I struggle quite a lot with joint pain and other issues. This year I just reduced the amount of gluten that I'd eaten because I thought, oh, I feel a bit rubbish when I eat it, but actually even the small amount that I was eating would have been doing damage, and when you damage your small intestine, it means that you actually cannot absorb any of the food that you eat properly. So that would really explain a lot of the injuries that I've had over the years, because although I eat a lot, I eat a healthy, balanced diet, that probably wasn't working how it should be in terms of my digestion and absorbing all of the micronutrients that I've been eating. So when we was looking into my previous bone injuries before, one of the main questions you always get asked as a female athlete is, do you always have a period? And that was one of the things where my period's always regular. I've never ever missed one. So it was always frustrating because I felt like that was always being pinned on me, that obviously a lot of female athletes who do have bone injuries, it may have come from the Red syndrome syndrome where they're under fueling, and then as a result of that your bones will suffer and you'll most likely get stress fractures. But for me, I never had that as a warning sign because I never missed a period, so there was never that, oh, something's not quite right in that sense. So I think for me it's been really helpful to get this diagnosis and know that I have been doing everything right. There's just been one big thing that's been having a negative impact. So it does make a lot of sense, and I feel like if I can really get on top of this and make sure I cut gluten out entirely, I'm gonna feel a whole lot better. So that makes me feel quite positive about the situation. And I also feel like I've done pretty well as an athlete dealing with this. So hopefully by really kind of nipping it in the bud and getting to the bottom of it, I can feel a lot better day to day, and also then my performance will hopefully improve as well. So the other question that I asked the consultant was, do you think I've had this my whole life or have I developed it? And he said it's very unlikely that you would develop it in your 30s. Apparently that's something that can happen more later in life in your 60s, but it's more likely that I have had this my whole life. And actually when I think back to when I was a swimmer, when I used to compete at a high level, or even when I used to compete as a kid, I used to get severe joint pain pretty much like after every single competition, and I used to just eat pasta at those competitions, which is obviously all gluten, so it's just taken this long to finally get it diagnosed. So yeah, I think it's one of those things that maybe if you're having similar symptoms to this, where you have joint pain, or maybe you're bloated all the time, or you're just in pain with your stomach, it possibly is worth looking into this. And actually, when you're eating gluten and you've got celiac disease, where you are actually damaging your small intestine, it can mean that you become intolerant to other foods during that time. I think that's why potentially there's been other foods that I haven't got on very well with as well. So for now, I'm going to cut those out, and then I'll gradually reintroduce them as I start to mend and recover my small intestine. Okay, thanks for watching this little update. We're going to link a video below on one of the main ones that I've been watching to learn a bit more about celiac disease in case you're interested. And if anyone watching has got celiac disease and has got any tips, tricks or advice for me, then definitely put that in the comments below as well. It's always appreciated. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more videos coming soon.
I'll take over from here.
And hello, I'm Pickle, and today we're talking about the treats that I get to eat after running.